My sugar's
What is
right.
it?
Our
Hold
our recording and for video, and I'm not sure, is Bill attending or is he?
on, how that.
No. We do have a William here in the room.
We still have a minute.
Yeah, I didn't hear any bells ring.
Sorry.
I operate on the bells. Okay. No bells, yeah. Yeah. It's funny, when I get work calls before a bell happens, I'm like, I'm hanging up until bells. They're like, what the hell? What are you talking about? Like, that's too early.
Oh, there's Apple. Oh,
Yep, I hear a bell.
Story behind the flag movie.
I think it was Kim's and maybe he wanted to decorate.
yeah, just for. It just fits in this big room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about when pigs fly, and kind of what I aspire.
Ryan Cronin
Can't
from
help
Water
it.
Street.
Oh, that screams Ryan.
All right, let's stand for the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. And please, as always, check out our agendas and minutes and help us find new ways to support Indigenous communities. I'm really grateful to Sana for helping add to our list. These links are pretty great, so check them out.
On the consent agenda, I'm adding item number 7 regarding the insurance policy. This is an addition since we published the draft agenda on Friday. Business agenda, we're also adding item number 1, cannabis grower showcase. Item number 3, advertise to hire in the building department. Item number 7, mutual aid regarding the building department. And item number 9, the intermunicipal agreement for the town related to the watering of the plants on Main Street. I move to accept the consent and business agendas as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
I move the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Announcements from board members?
I have a bunch. First is that Senator Hinchey and the Hudson Valley Center for Veteran Reintegration, our New Paltz VFW, and Ulster County Veterans Agency are teaming up on a Veterans and Military Families Resource Fair tomorrow at our VFW. You know, it's just across from the college from 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. There's about 30 different organizations that will be bringing a ton of different resources there, and it's free and open to the public. And yeah, hope to see people there. The free food fridge, just a reminder, that is available to all right outside this building at 25 Pottikill Avenue. Donations, thanks to everyone who's been keeping it well stocked during these heat waves in particular. Donations are always needed, and you know, if you ever need anything, don't be shy. For more info on how to properly donate, millionsofbutterflies.org/free-food-fridge. Narcan and other harm reduction services are available to anyone, anywhere in Ulster County, thanks to Ellenville Regional's Project Rescue program. So you can text ERH Rescue to 21000, and they can hook you up with Narcan, fentanyl test kits, snort kits, sex kits, stuff like that. Ellenville Regional will actually be at the Senator's Resource Fair tomorrow too, so I'm excited for their table. Just want to share the Never Use Alone hotline. It can save lives. 800-484-3731. Just a reminder that here in New Paltz, Narcan trainings are always available online at www.opioidpreventionnp.org. And that's it for now.
So, I have an announcement with Family of New Paltz to remind folks when there can be charitable to consider Family of New Paltz. They are always looking for in-season clothes or different food. I would always call over there before you go over though, just to make sure what you have is what they need because it's a limited space. But they're also always in need of cash to help folks in our community pay bills or different things that they might specifically need for different people. So you can go over there anytime during Family of New Paltz's open hours.
Anything else from board members? No? Okay. Do we have anyone from the public in person or online interested in making a public comment? I would just like to add that I think some people are here to talk about the garage rehab project. So I would love it if we could have that conversation. And then we could follow up with public comment. We can have public comment immediately after if questions about that project are not answered during that conversation. That would probably be the best use of everyone's time. Any comments from the public about any other topics? Okay, then I'm gonna jump to business agenda item number 1. So we have Cannabis Growers Showcase. Do you folks want to join us at the table and we can talk about our conversation from a couple of weeks ago and what we've done subsequently? So I can provide a
Yeah, maybe you can give a little top line. Yeah.
Yeah, I can provide a quick description of what's going on. So New York State has been, to put it nicely, relatively slow in terms of launching how cannabis will be sold in our state. And an interim step that has been considered is empowering local growers to sell product at markets, like farmers markets. And the Office of Cannabis Management created a framework, and Alex reached out to some local growers to see if they might be interested. We brainstormed with our friends here who will introduce in a moment about how this could work. But it's more or less, the idea would be to host a farmer's market where cannabis products could be sold on municipal property. And we've been eyeballing where it could take place, hours of operation, speaking with our police department, speaking with our village staff. My understanding is that the Office of Cannabis Management is requiring at least 3 local growers to participate. And then you would also need to have 1 licensed seller of cannabis to participate. So we have been brainstorming about the idea of having a market where these wares would be sold as soon as August 10th. And we were thinking that we would use this property because it's uniquely positioned in that there's a great deal of parking nearby. It's very accessible by foot. And we would be doing it during off hours, Thursdays and Fridays from 4 to 8, and from 1 to 8 on Saturdays as a test concept. And what was important to our police chief is that, you know, this is a concept. So we would go ahead and test the waters, and, you know, if it goes poorly, we don't do it subsequently. And we spoke about the idea of having our staff at least one staff here that would be available to be in regular communication with the police department if needed. Our police chief was not too worried about needing police involvement, but he said it would make a great deal of sense just to have intermittent patrols. The most important thing, and this is what we do with any event in New Paltz, is just to make sure that we're communicating regularly with our police department so that they have a heads up and are nearby and aware. So let you guys introduce yourselves and provide any additional details.
So I'm Rick Weissman, my wife and business partner, Tricia Horst. We started our enterprise 5 years ago, growing hemp for CBD. Our original intent, and still is what our major intent is, to have plant-based wellness products that allows people to, heal themselves of all sorts of stuff that conventional medicines and pharmaceutical manufactured medicines really don't do the job on in quite a few different areas. In 2022, last year, we were New York State, again, being kind of like out there in what goes on in this country for cannabis. Told the hemp growers, go out and you can grow cannabis, and we'll get the market set up so you can sell it when it comes to maturity or harvest. And to date, they've, in a state of over 18 million people, there's 21 licensed dispensaries open. A couple of which have actually gone out of business because they just weren't run by the right people. A couple of which are delivery only. And as anyone who's ever knows anybody in New York City, there is such a developed delivery system in the illicit market that that there's no real chance that these are going to succeed, and they really aren't. Having said all that, hearing the cries of us farmers, even though we're in like 6 dispensaries, we still have about 85% of the material we harvested left to sell, and it can't come fast enough. So we really appreciate the town's openness to this concept. It's actually going to help us and other farmers out dramatically, just to help us liquefy our product, help us get ready, make room for 2023's crops. So the OCM, Office of Cannabis Management, our regulators, came up with a plan to allow us to do what they call cannabis growers showcases. They were going to call it farmers markets, but the Department of Ag and Markets had a fit about that. And that probably took a couple extra weeks of just getting, delays. So nonetheless, we're High Falls, Canada, based out of High Falls, and with our farms in Accord. And we are going to assume the role of the Cannabis Growers Showcase organizer. We are going to invite at least 2 more cultivators, and my goal is, if this thing attracts demand and attention, I could see us expanding the number of growers there, because ultimately, if we have, it depends. We figure, my estimates is, well, you'll have 200 people in a 4-hour session on a Thursday or a Friday night. And I'm just ballparking 500 people for Saturday, 1 to 7 or 1 to 8. And we're going to do it in the parking area behind the Department of Public Works building. We're going to basically partition it off. We're going to try and make it something that people are going to go to, and it's not going to look like a bunch of slop dock farmers, but something a little more professional and a little better organized. That's kind of, we have the history of doing events going back a couple decades. So we, in a different context completely. But nonetheless, we do, events are something which is kind of in our DNA. So we want to make a positive presentation. If we can get, approval for something 2 weeks from tomorrow, it's going to be one of the first in the state. I know it's going to get a lot of attention. So we don't want to look like a bunch of ragtag farmers who can barely rub 2 nickels together. We want to look like, an organization that is together, and we, and the rules state that the cultivators, us or a processor has to bring product that is in compliant packaging. So one way in which New York State is different as it pertains to cannabis sales is that they're relying on the growers or the processors, the ones who make gummies and vapes and all the other, cannabis type of products, to have their products in compliant packages. As opposed to like in Colorado, you'll go there, they'll show you a big jar of whatever, and someone will say, I'll take whatever, an ounce of that. And then they weigh it out and they do that. In our scenario, we have to have everything pre-packaged, pre-weighed, with all the warning labels and we have to have lab reports validating, the fact that there's so many cannabinoids in our products, and that it's free of contaminants like pesticides, heavy metals, yeast and mold, and the like. So they have a whole bunch of rules, and the farmers bring the products to the market. And then as people come and say, I don't want this, and that, they'll go to there's a licensed dispensary operator who, they're the only ones who can collect money. We can't collect money. We're not allowed to sell. I mean, the way New York State works is if you grow or make products, you can't sell to the customer. They're just, because they don't want the, monopolization as you see in other states, or at least they say they do. There's a whole nother conversation that I'm not even going to start here. About some of the larger organizations that run the medical enterprises.
Well, we're also doing it the same way that we have to do it with dispensaries, because we are only allowed to sell in New York State to licensed dispensaries. So it's the same type of thing. And that's why we have a dispensary or someone with a dispensary license that has to be present with the farmers.
Mayor Tim also shared with me that there is an applicant who's been awarded a license to come into New Paltz. And our intent is not to extend our market past the time that this dispensary would come into being.
No one has been awarded a license. There are applicants that have been having conversations with DASNY as well as Office of Cannabis Management. I anticipate that there will be an awardee at some point in the future, but there has absolutely
okay.
Very, very important that we.
Well, regardless, if one does come about, we're not going to sit here and be that entity that is competing with someone who's, a dispensary we want to succeed. We want to be in that dispensary. I don't want to be competitors with them. So that is our goal, our intent, and how we would handle that. That situation's come up in our discussions, and it was about a 4-second conversation when we decided to,
Yeah, I think I would add to that too. So what's super interesting about this showcase concept that was articulated and introduced by the Office of Cannabis Management is they're saying, for exactly the reason that you're describing, they're providing this runway until January because they anticipate licenses being granted, but they feel like they want to at least create this program through January. And so we have language here that speaks to this weekly program up until January per the guidelines from the state. But I think what I would add to this, and this is what I'll ask our board to consider, is that this is not automatically being approved weekly up until January. It's conditional based on, if there's a license granted in our community, as well as, that other idea that, let's say this goes horribly wrong. We need to be able to pull the plug on this, like for whatever reason, it doesn't work. We just want to have that option that we're trying it and it's a bi-week concept.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we want to, use, we don't know exactly what to expect. We want to we want to learn from the experiences, and if there is something that we don't understand that becomes a problem, well, let's either deal with the problem or figure out some other context in which this should be done.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get this up and running before the college semester begins, because then the Thursday, Friday will be really active. So I'd like us to figure out everything before then. Ideally.
When does school start?
The end of August.
August 25th.
Yeah. So the timing is really great. I just want to add a few things. If the public's interested in a reminder on all those different kinds of licenses and stuff. We did a great Cannabis 101 session with an attorney and with our now county executive, who at the time was on, the board of cannabis stuff, Jen Metzger, and it was a really good discussion. And that video lives on the village website. You can just search Cannabis 101 and find that video because it goes through the different licenses and stuff, basically, like the top line stuff. The other thing is I did some research myself this weekend. I went down to the Housing Works dispensary in the city. So I was at a friend's bachelor party and I saw some of your products, and it's cool. You can scan products and there's QR codes and you learn everything about it. And I think that's really cool. And, for any members of the public that might be a little nervous about this, like, I think everything that anyone could be nervous about is being addressed, in all these cool ways. So those two things. And then I did want to note that in all this, like literally 10 minutes after OCM allowed for this provisional showcase program, they had a meeting with Tim and I, and we were the first municipality that they got to chat with about this. So I wanted to share that with you guys too, which was cool. Yeah.
Cool. This was probably last week sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same day.
Yeah, it was literally, they were leaving that meeting and hopping into ours. And I didn't know that they had a meeting that day. I didn't realize it. So, but I played it off cool, like, oh yeah, totally was expecting, some good news. So yeah.
I have a question too. So you spoke about roping off the area. I'm curious about, because Alex is talking about when the college returns, right? Like you can only sell cannabis products to 21 and over. So how does the ID process work? Maybe you can just.
Well, there's going to be two scans. One, we're going to scan people who want to come into the roped off area. We'll ask for an ID. It has to be 21 or over. We'll have a little sign that says your birthday must be this date, or and then, but ultimately the real responsibility lives with the dispensary that actually is going to collect money. We're going to try and make it a safe environment and not have teenagers running around and anything. The only exception to having a minor in the roped off area would be if a mother or a parent comes with a child in a stroller. They have to be small enough to fit in a stroller. Is kind of like almost a criteria that I think in my head. Where I don't want some little kid running around and like just ducking under a table where there might be So there's
Right, I think that's an important point to highlight is the licensee. It would be their responsibility to enforce the age limits.
The other thing also that I want to stress is that this is not a consumption event. There's no consumption. I mean, technically, you can smoke cannabis wherever you can smoke cigarettes in New York State. That's not going to prevent someone from buying a pre-roll and walking 100 yards away and lighting one up. I mean, that's their right as a citizen in the resident of a person in New York State. But I mean, we're going to have like a zero tolerance policy with our staff, with the staff of the other farms that come in. It's like it's no. If you can't go the day without consuming something while you're working this event, then you're not the right person to work this event.
Well, it's the same way of running it with our business. I mean, we say to everybody, we had them all sign that they can't smoke during the day, just like they can't drink alcohol during the day. We have machines that we run sometimes with our trimming or, just different equipment that we use poses a danger issue. So same kind of thing. They are trying to work with these concert venues and do some things with them. I'm sure you heard about that. However, the big thing people are saying, oh, you can buy it, but you're not allowed to smoke it. So, you're not allowed to smoke at any concerts, not even cigarettes. So it's not any different of a rule than that.
People break it all the time.
Well, of course, but it's the same kind of thing that you were saying. You can't pin people to a wall and say, no, you're not allowed, but hopefully we can enforce it enough that it's going to be
our events that we
appropriate.
can.
Yes.
Other than that,
Well, that's what event staff
Outside your
can
cordoned
talk-
off area, there's only so much you can.
Exactly. That's what I'm.
I have
Okay.
two
Rick, quick question here. The licensed dispenser is, do you have somebody else in mind? Because my understanding is,
So,
Yeah.
that, I'm sorry.
my understanding is you can get a license holder from anywhere in the state. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Originally, they said that, I'm sorry.
Who do you expect it to be?
So we had a conference call with this fella, Matt Robinson at Essential Flowers. He's a delivery only licensee. He hosted a Zoom call, and he basically, his comment was that they have, his requirements are they need to have the point of sale system present, and he has his on portable iPads. He also has these devices that will take credit card money, away from without electricity or internet. So, runs wirelessly and with, battery power.
I thought credit cards weren't allowed. I thought it was all cash.
Debit cards are allowed.
Debit card.
Debit cards, thank you.
These are actually debit card readers.
Right.
But to be honest with you, I don't know if I don't know how sophisticated these devices really are. I mean, I would love to just slip a credit card in there and see what happens. I mean, I don't know.
I did some research on that end, and my prepaid credit card, which is my only bank card, worked. So I don't know if I should reveal that, but I'm excited. The reason I was clapping was I love this man, Matt Robinson's story. I was just pulling up an article I'm going to share with the board later on, because he's like the reason, so much of this the way the law was written, so much of Senator Kruger and her team's work for the past 12 years, really speaks to Matt Robinson's story. He was arrested twice as a kid, and just, yeah, I'm really happy that we get to also be supporting, this person who was wronged in the war on drugs, a Black man, let's go down the list of, ways it just speaks to me. So sorry to interrupt. That's why I was clapping. Really excited about that story.
I wanted to know.
Yeah, we get to support justice, as well as local farmers, and just checking off all the boxes for a lot of what I think our community stands for.
Sort of curious, why Thursday?
It's kind of before so for some people, the weekend begins on Thursdays. For some, it begins on Wednesdays. I mean, we're not going to do it on a Sunday. No one's, people go to church on Sundays, or they're recovering from their weekend, whatever that entails.
Or they come on Thursday to prepare for the weekend, or if they're going on a trip somewhere as well.
So we're essentially would be the first in the state to do this type of an event. Is that correct?
We
don't know.
Well, technically, the license applications opened up on the 19th last Thursday. So theoretically, and they need 10 days notice. So theoretically, next Thursday could be the first, August 3rd. It depends on what applications are in. I got to tell you, it's been a real event, an experience going through the application, because you got to put the application in, and then next thing you know, there's forms. They go, oh, you got to fill out this form, and then they go, oh, really? And then they go, and here's a sample of that form.
Yeah, and we're doing exactly the same thing, right? Because this is a work in progress. We're making sure that we're dotting I's. This is all new territory for us. And that's why we shared with you our event form, which was not written with this in mind, but we think it's probably 90% applicable, and our peddler's permit, which is probably 90% applicable, but that's probably where we should start as far as making sure that we.
Around 6:30, I sent you the latest format of what the municipal letter should look like.
Great.
I put our information in, and there's a little room for here, but I made 4 copies of.
Great. So we have this letter, which we will, if our board agrees, we will send to the Office of Cannabis Management, as well as our local paperwork, our event application and peddler's permits. So what I'm going to propose is that as a board, we move to approve this conditionally, assuming that you dot all those i's with our clerk's office, and then the Office of Cannabis Management green lights, this market to happen.
I
So
still
that's-
had a question.
Yeah, so anybody want to second my motion, and then we'll continue with the questions. Okay, go ahead.
So, as far as other growers and producers of edibles or whatnot, have you already reached out to some others? Have you?
So I have, well, so,
I know you guys make them.
for the producer of edibles, we've been working with this company based out of Rochester. We've sent, Trisha drove 700 pounds of our material to them in December. They have produced now 3 different gummies for us that they're distributing for us. So we invited them to come along to be the process. The processor cannot be more than 35% of the inventory brought to the event. In other words, they don't want a processor monopolizing the event, because this is really about the farmers, not the processors.
Right.
So
You had said you wanted to have other farmers and processors to be there. So I'm just wondering, like, have you spoken to other farmers as well, and other processors, and are you trying to find other people as locally as possible?
So, yes, I mean, so we're part of 2 trade organizations. One's the Cannabis Farmers Alliance, and another one's the Cannabis Association of New York. And we are, there's a county cannabis association meeting just now. I have one of our colleagues is going to be on that and going to be mentioning that we're going to be opening up a market here. I have 2 other cultivators, licensees, lined up who are kind of easy and close to us. But to be honest with you, I'm going to want to add more if we have a lot of demand. Then I think we should make it available to more growers.
So to answer your question a bit more, Stana, the rule is for every 3 cultivators that you can add another processor.
Right.
So as of right now, there can be only 1 processor involved, but if it
Yeah.
grows, then
I understand.
They have to have 3.
3 cultivators.
Right. The other thing was, I just wanted to make sure that we're doing it as local as possible. So that's.
We're all about that.
Well, actually, so one farm is in Accord, another farm is in LaGrangeville, right across the river. And there are others. There's one in Copeg who I had a dialogue with on this call with Matt Robinson yesterday, and so, I mean, again, we're open to, and, it doesn't make as much sense for someone far away to come do this, because you gotta come, and we're also, we're also going to expect a certain level of behavior from the participants. They need to bring a canopy tent. It needs to be nice. It can't look like it went through World War II.
Right.
And also we as an organization are offering to provide canopy tents and tables for those who don't have the bandwidth to bring it on their own. We'll probably charge them like $25 a day more for the setup and storage than it is for the, we're not trying to make money. We're just trying to
Make sure it's clean and organized and it looks presentable to everyone. Because that's what we're all about, like the QR codes that you were talking about. I mean, everything that we have everything QR coded. I do a lot of the labeling. I do all this design and all that, and then work with Rick to make sure everything's correct as far as what's on the label. And the QR codes, everything that's on that, if you scan, we want to make sure, like ours is in that container that you're getting. The COAs and all of those, certificate of authenticity and all of those things, the content of the THC is accurate, all of that. So it's very transparent. So the people we're working with as well, we are making sure that they're at the same standard and that not somebody else is coming in that's doing something like maybe a Legacy would do, and they're just kind of faking it and pretending to be either licensed or pretending to do what they need to actually do with the OCM if they want to get a permanent license.
So,
Thank you so
go ahead, Bill.
Just at this time of year, August through the fall, it's a very busy time of defaults. We have a lot of people who come for apples, for looking at the leaves, farmers markets. I'm wondering if we feel as a board that, and maybe you've had this conversation with the chief about having traffic control, at least initially, because it does get pretty crazy on Main Street. I'm sure everyone listening or interested in.
I've been here since 1980.
So you-
I've
Yeah,
owned
I spoke all about
It's-
traffic and congestion with the chief last night.
So what did he?
That's something he absolutely wants to keep an eye on, and we will see how it goes the first week. And, they're, going to keep this on their radar. And, Rob agrees that it makes sense that if there was any property in the village that could absorb visitors, it is this one, because of like parking in Tricor, parking in front of the DPW garage, parking in front of this village hall property. So he's willing to give it a go. Plus the access points are larger than probably a lot of other locations. Did you want to ask a question,
I have
Karen?
a question. Because this is a is the expectation that when there are licensed dispensaries in, there will no longer be?
Yes, that's what we
Yeah, we
said.
said that.
Yeah,
already.
so pending.
It's even in the language here. It goes away as soon as.
brick
the-
and mortar.
Yeah.
Just to address Bill's question too, that's one of the reasons we wanted this to be multiple days each week. So hopefully people will plan accordingly and, that will help spread things out. So it's not just Saturday rush. Yeah. So, people will be like, oh, let me beat the rush. I know what life is like in New Paltz on Saturdays.
I'm going up.
I'm going Thursday. Yeah.
So in terms of someone comes to your tent, they take product. Do they go pay for it and then come back for the product, or they take the product to the license?
That was just, basically, I believe, we need to work the exact mechanical steps out,
Yeah.
but effectively, they're gonna pay for the product, then come to us with their ticket and we'll hand it to them. That's how I envision it. We're using what the OCM calls the instantaneous transaction model, where the farmers and the processors bring the inventory to the event, and then what's purchased is purchased, and the dispensary charges is allowed to make a 50% markup on it. And we are allowed, and as an organizer, we think that the dispensary deserves all 50%. I know some other growers think differently. We value what he's done to get to his spot, irrespective of the whole background. Just to know he's there, he's able to fulfill. There's only 21 people in this state that are able to.
Right. And I would just add, so this is the same framework that the state is using to distribute sales tax generated from cannabis sales at dispensaries.
Right.
And it's a very unique model. It's different than when you buy anything else in our county, for instance, where the sales tax share, a larger percentage of it will go to the local municipalities, the village of New Paltz, the town of New Paltz, as opposed to the way sales tax is currently shared in Ulster County.
How's our lighting back there after dark?
Not gonna be dark.
Well, it goes to 8 o'clock and in October it gets dark.
So there's a couple of plugs there, and our idea is to run low voltage, like kind of like almost Christmas lights, like this, just something to give us some amount of light. I don't low voltage because we don't have that much amperage. I don't believe in those two outlets.
Right.
Um,
And again, if it seems too dark, then we're just gonna stop it, right? Or we're gonna stop it earlier. Like this
Adjust the
is,
times.
yeah.
Right.
we need to have, I mean, it needs to be a safe environment. If you can't see what's going on, then.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, darkness can create things that you don't want to happen.
But
and
there's
you
some
can't
light, there's some
see.
light back.
Yeah,
Michelle has not
the
asked
higher-
any questions.
Got nothing, thank you.
Are there, I don't remember when we were out there yesterday, are there like higher, large lights on top on?
There's lighting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Probably for safety for anyone that's here late, right?
It's for the courts and.
Sure.
lighting.
Yeah, there's definitely some lighting.
Are you
It
having,
used to be the courthouse.
has it been people, professionals,
That's why all that-
are you planning on having
Makes sense.
music or anything?
We're not allowed to provide
No
entertainment.
music, no entertainment of any
That's
type.
part of the OCM rule.
You can't have a mime, you can't have any factor of entertainment at all.
Yeah, if any clowns show up, get a big applause.
I can't do a concert.
The only other, so in our draft language here, because we have been talking about considering the spot further to the south in the lot, so, and Rick presented us with a site plan sketch, and it's immediately behind the DPW garage, closer to the entrance to the clerk's office. So we have that diagram, but, you know, just so that we update this language, that just needs to be tweaked. Any other questions from our board before we?
Letter, that's what we're doing.
We're authorizing the letter, and our approval is conditional that they complete all the other paperwork with the clerk's office, peddler's
And-
permit, events offices. And I sent you a note about paying the village $400 because we're going to have a staff as a point person there during the hours of operation. We just think absolutely during the first
Well, that's
3
fine.
days, we want to have a village representative there.
The OCM does stipulate that we're only allowed to have water on the property. Nobody can bring any drinks or, I mean,
We
we
can't vend.
can't vend anything but water.
So
So
what is the property? Is it the entire village hall footprint and courts, or
Well, here,
Is
there's,
it-
here,
or is it just the back area?
Yeah, we're only giving them access to this triangle. So when I met with Rick yesterday, I explained to them how we have permitted parking there, and like their vendors are not to park there, their customers are not to park there. That area, we don't anticipate a lot of vehicle movement, but there may be someone who, you know, that whole aisle needs to remain open.
Yeah, I'm just, you know.
And that's a nice, safe, like, good boundary. I think it's a natural boundary.
I'm just sort of surmising if this becomes a huge success, and, you know, could we have music in our garage, for example? Or could we have, you know, would that be a possibility, or is that still the village hall property that would
That is
be?
We would have to,
I'm
I
sorry.
think that's something we would have to double check with like OCM stuff and have like
Yeah, I'm
just
just
a
curious.
close review of that, because I don't think any of us know that answer.
Sure.
Yeah,
They
they
want
want-
all-
OCM
You have
wants
to
this to be-
establish this before anything like
They
that.
want this to be a pure play
Yeah.
to help the growers get the stock out of their inventory.
That's it.
because a lot of these farmers.
There should be
are
no
really in bad shape.
fun being had during. No fun.
to your question, to your point though, the way the regulations read from the Office of Cannabis Management, we are allowed to create an event that piggybacks on an existing music event.
Oh, boy.
So, I mean, originally, well, I'll tell you what, the original,
So maybe you can do Bill's idea.
It's just a question.
no, the original one they wanted to do was when Dead and Company was in City Field a month ago. And they just couldn't get it past the governor's office quick enough. But no, but the point is, I mean, there is like a rye bread festival up near Coxsackie this weekend, I think, and
Yeah.
you know, where, I mean, places, things like that. You know, I mean, there's also a 150,000 person attended balloon event in Binghamton in like September. I mean, there are some large events out there that are coming on the radar screen for something like this. So that's allowed. You can't mix cannabis and alcohol in the immediate same area. But like there's a beer tent at the state fair, you know, I don't
Well,
know.
to Bill's point though, right, we have a fairly busy, you know, late summer and fall in New Paltz. We already kind of have our own event already planned. It's like apples and apple cider donuts. So we don't need to augment what's.
Yeah, we
already-
don't, I don't want a whole big thing.
One thing I wanted to mention,
Let's
and
keep
we
it
were just
simple.
talking about just, you know, passive
agree.
signage. So one thing we're thinking of doing is putting a little sign up, you know, where you come off the freeway and you're at that T right by the mobile station.
That's allowed technically. We didn't hear that.
Well, no, I just see all these things like the Rib Fest was there and
Yeah,
this.
Signs, but it's technically not allowed.
Yeah, it's not legal.
Ooh,
Not up to
okay.
code.
It's about the signs.
The other thing we're thinking of doing, and this
We do
is,
stuff by the book,
Yeah.
so it's good to know that that's not
You
legal.
can see that.
is we're thinking of having someone like that Geico commercial where the kid has that sign and his dad goes by and says you pointed the wrong way and, you know, but someone like that. And the OCM says all we can do is say cannabis growers showcase. We can't have pictures of pot leaves. We can't have anything that's, you
That
know,
might help cut off traffic from
Yeah.
going downtown too.
Yeah.
So that might be a good.
Yeah.
good
you
move
know,
on
just have
that.
them stand out by McGillicuddy's with the sign and just, you know.
With everything I've seen, I think they need to add legal licensed cannabis because I've been to dispensaries and right across the street is one of the, you know, legacy style, big, huge pot leaf on the front of the building. And they haven't closed them down yet. I don't get it. And there are these things called sticker stores. You heard of that? I looked at our guy, I go,
We've been discussing this with the Office of Cannabis Management for years.
good for you.
So can we call the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's one of the reasons why we're supportive of trying to do this
Yeah.
legally.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I've got a couple extra hard copies of our event permit. If,
Oh, cool.
I mean, I know I said, we've had
Yeah, we'll take
an email blaze today,
Mhm.
but there's that.
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to item number 2.
Can I ask one last question? Would it be possible to return that municipal letter back to me tomorrow?
Sure.
Because that's gonna allow me to try and get in under that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Autumn's got you.
Thank you, Autumn.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next item is our garage rehab project. So, just to provide some background, I would highlight that we have been discussing trying to figure out ways to empower young people, empower our arts community for years. It has been articulated in every single one of our past downtown revitalization initiative applications that we have submitted to the Regional Economic Development Council. So this will be our 7th year. And last year, we focused on trying to address the fentanyl crisis by having more things for young people and, whether it's sports or arts or a variety of things. And we really think that there's a unique opportunity to focus on Hasbrook Park and this property. So we did not receive an award when we applied to the New York Forward program or to the Downtown Revitalization Initiative last year. But what we have is this unique situation where our fire department was in this 3-bay garage and in this meeting room where we sit. And we have been trying to figure out an interim way to integrate these collectively owned assets into our community. And what's really interesting about this property is that there's probably a higher and better use for what we have going on here. We have a long in the tooth property that has tons of deferred maintenance and a leaky roof. And we actually did a training with where we partnered with RUPCO. It was a training that was hosted by Pattern for Progress. So we're going to try to package that concept into an updated application to the Regional Economic Development Council. And we anticipate that the due date will be later this summer. But again, with the theme of like our community needs to do more to provide outlets for arts and sports and just what do young people do as opposed to go to Tops and run around the aisles. That's a true story because my son tells me that's what they do. So we have this unique situation where we have this really interesting 2,500 square foot garage, and we've been partnering with Marianne Rowley from Carve for a Cause, and we have actually hosted numerous meetings where we have invited folks from the community, from the school district, from the teen center, from the arts community, from the YMCA, that like the list is super long about like, what could we do with this space? And, we're in this weird transitional point where even if every star aligns and we were actually able to reimagine this property where we would add housing or better services or better programming, that's 5 years out, right? So what do we do in the interim? Like, we have this garage, and we came up with this idea where we would clean it up and make it available to potentially the New Paltz Youth Program, CCE up in Kingston, that's Drew Andrews' group, that's the Center for Creative Education. And so the other thing that we think is very unique is that we want to tread carefully, because this is a concept that we need to test. Because what has me a little bit nervous is that how will that building perform, or that space perform, when it is colder? So I've gotten quotes from Rycor, and they estimate that you would need 5,000 or 5 mini splits, even with NYSERDA incentives and a generous discount from Rycor, it would still be like $30,000 investment to just provide heating and cooling in that space. Because it's perfectly okay right this minute, but what will it feel like if the New Paltz Youth Program is using it a couple nights a week, if CCE is using it a couple nights a week, if other community groups, we have Michelle hosted, were you there? Bloom used it for singing events. So like, that's what we're trying to do in the very near term, but we also want to be careful about like not booking it out, because, and this is what I said when I sat with CCE and the New Paltz Youth Program, is like, we should think about like getting young people down here after school for some afternoon programming, but also like doing it in a bite-sized way, because what if it ends up being very costly to heat and cool, and then the maintenance, like I cannot imagine asking our staff to then also take responsibility for cleaning these spaces. All of that stuff costs more money and time than most would imagine. So we're trying to be super thoughtful about how we use it for programming. I think it makes a lot of sense to, get some dates on the calendar, but I also, like, my own mom is bothering me about like using it for her like tap dance club. Like everyone is like trying to, get their their dates on the calendar for this space. And I feel like there's a few things that we have to figure out, like how will it work? How will the ebb and flow feel? How will we heat and cool it? What will the addition to the electricity bill feel like? I don't even know how the heating in there will actually work, because it has only been used as a garage. I don't know how it will work if you actually are in there for any sort of extended time, not wearing like fire department turnout gear. Like it's a unique space. So we're very open to testing the concept, but we're trying to do it in like a thoughtful, measured way. And I think we also should think about, as a board, to maybe like rent it out at 4 market prices a couple of days a week. I mean, maybe it's Saturdays. Maybe Saturday you look for others who could pay a 4 market rate, so that we could then pay for the electricity and the heating and cooling when we have other community groups where we don't want or expect them to pay market rates to use the space. So it's a very tricky, I think, balancing act, but I think we have to figure out a way to make it sustainable and make it successful. You guys want to?
I mean, just the fact of, you mentioned your mom wanting a tap dance club. I mean, everybody does want, or is imagining this, because there's such a lack of space for folks to have things like that. And, we've talked about the use of the space previously, and I love the idea of having something for our younger folks in the community, more things for them. I also think that, my group Bloom members who are here today, are really excited that we were able to sing in there the last 2 Sundays, and it's just Sunday morning for a short amount of time. And just being in there sort of gleaned a little bit of what it would feel like. I had them sing out there while I sat in here. And so you can't really have 2 things happening at once. So if we were having a board meeting, we couldn't rent that space out unless that's soundproofed in
It's
some way.
exactly the same
Yeah.
conversation that I had with CCE. So
Yeah.
if CCE did after school programming, it would have to end by 6 o'clock.
Right. So little things like that was just interesting to glean. And I mean, I know what I would love, and I know some of my members of my singing group are here, just to talk about, to be that guinea pig. If, we were in there just on Sundays, generate a little bit of money for the village to rent it out. And
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think your group was asking to use it for like an hour and a half or 2 hours in the middle of the day.
no, Sunday mornings, 10 to 1.
Right, so that's the middle of the day, right? So like that would then defeat the opportunity. That would defeat the opportunity for us to do anything else with the space for all intents and purposes.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
What happens after 1 o'clock? Nothing?
Well, say another event wanted to rent out the space and pay a market rate, a fixed schedule where it might not be in the most desirable time. I would think middle of the day Sunday is the most desirable time. Right? Like if we have an opportunity to rent it out to
Yeah.
another event.
That will pay
I
market
guess so.
rate.
I guess I was more under the impression this would be a community space. So something that's sorely needed within the community.
A community space that we have to pay for.
It's not yet like the community space we want it to be though, because it's not able to be used when there's meetings. And people are gonna freeze in there as of now. So back to like the OG, even when I was like clerking meetings, conversation, like way before fire department ever actually moved, there's a lot of other ways to potentially make those changes happen that would make it actually a proper community space.
Right.
And
but
those
that's
would
a
mean
long
being
time
able
out, right?
to do like kind of like, I remember there was the idea of, a request for ideas being created,
Mhm.
for that space and whatnot. If there's any way we could get help from, an organization or group or something to make that space more usable, I want to be able to do that.
Can I give an enormous shout out? So Bill has been helping trying to organize painting of the space. So M&T Bank has already provided $1,500 towards the paint. They've already provided volunteers that helped do the painting, and then they're going to come back and do more. The Bruderhof provided human power and power washing and $2,000. Marianne Rowley's group with others have provided $2,000 for the painting. So there have been organizations that have already stepped up and do need to be thanked for like letting us get this far. I just feel like we need to. I'm all for doing like use it straight away, but like the idea that it could be booked out at what I would consider probably one of the more valuable times for, months in advance, it kind of handcuffs us to one use.
What would market rate be?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think we've looked into that yet.
Well,
I think a provisional, I think booking things out a little bit at a time because it's a new space would make sense, but just too far down the road definitely does kind of put a cap on conversations that have been happening for a decade, you know?
No, well, I guess for me, and I would like to give the folks here a chance to speak because they did come here to share their thoughts. So I don't know if we want to do that now.
That's just a good question about the space. I've noticed that meetings are happening in this room instead of up in the village hall room, and I don't know what the reason for that is.
Accessory, or ADA, this is a ADA compliant space. It's, I think, a much more welcoming space for anyone and everyone. Love this space.
And people can get in and out easily, whether, you know, they've got a broken ankle or are in a wheelchair or anything else.
All right, so you're kind of permanently using this
Yes.
space.
Yeah, that's been the plan for a few years.
Understand that that is what transpired, because this also is a very attractive space. For example, for Bloom, this would be big enough and, you know, would be useful, but it won't work if, you know, it's not something used.
Well, we can still rent out the
Yes.
upstairs conference rooms. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my other question, is whether those rooms are,
Bloom can't use it though, it's not accessible.
okay, all right.
So getting back to market rate and that sort of idea, we do have a fee schedule that
Mhm.
you can, a group could rent per week for a year. And the rate is what, per month?
The fee schedule is
I know the fee schedule. in
is
terms-
way below market.
I agree. However, we have that in place, so, and then we also have the community center, what they charge as well. So, I mean, in terms of market rate, there's these two things to weigh. So I like the idea of having a consistent booking, because that way you have a guarantee that that space is going to be used and that you have a buy-in from those groups that come and visit and perform in it.
I think we also need to make it like publicly known,
First,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I agree. And we can doing that as we speak, and over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing that.
You definitely do have to figure out temperature control though.
Which we don't like.
And that was the whole point of having market rate, is that that will offset the price so that we can have the community come in for a nominal fee. We have to have something that'll pay for the heat and the cool, or else it's not happening.
Yeah, we definitely need to blast it out for sure.
I've seen this before where like you have a field and like one sports group books it all out and it's just like, but then no one else knew that it was even available.
Absolutely. And I mean, I feel like that's always the goal as this is progressing to be fixed up, and there's still no one in there right now. So, you know, in the interim, we have a group who's interested in
100%.
booking it until, you know, and with the knowing that in 3 months, it could all change because maybe it's finished and Rycor's in and blah, 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 and you want to book it out. And then that might change in 3 months. But, you know, as we're progressing with the changes, there is a group interested in being here.
And I think we should definitely consider that. It just, my understanding is that was not the ask. My understanding was that the ask was like, book it out for like numerous months in advance. During the middle of a Sunday, which is probably one of the more marketable days of the week.
It was the ask because I was unaware of the concept of booking it to other places, as I just learned here at the table today. So I didn't know that. I just thought it was open booking. So, yeah.
I didn't, you know, I mean, for example, there's groups that have just reached out for years, you know, that I haven't gotten a chance to share that this space is available to. You know, I'm a Girl Scout for life, and so I've been called out to Camp Wendy a couple times to meet with all the girls there, trying to troubleshoot space and all that. And I haven't even gotten a chance to say, hey guys, like there's a space now, like that could be used.
Yeah, and I mean, there was
So we
somebody
need to
here
spend time
talking
doing that.
a few months ago about using the space for sports. So, you know, all the voices
We gotta
need to be
follow up.
heard
Yeah.
about, you know, who wants to use the space.
Absolutely.
You know, because there are plenty of places for sports, but not enough places for things like the Girl Scouts or things like the arts, in my personal opinion.
So I'm just throwing an idea out. Should we have a meeting about this with the community, apart from our own village board meeting, where we talk about hey, we're about to open this, come visit with us. It's not a, maybe we have a quorum, I don't know, maybe it's a special meeting, I'm not sure what the format would be.
Mhm, mhm.
But just to take feedback from people who
Yeah.
can come in, and I would recommend doing that after it's finished painting,
Yeah,
because.
yes.
I think, the place has been pretty gruesome and it's getting better.
Looking less gruesome, but I anticipate, I was in conversation with M&T today, and we think we can finish it August 27th, the painting aspect of it. I did have another couple of ideas I would like to do with the space, and we can discuss it another time in terms of its physical appearance. But maybe we have something that first week of September to talk about.
I mean, again, I would like to give the folks who came
Yeah.
to specifically speak on this, their voices being heard on it. So I don't know.
And then I'll say something after them.
Autumn, if there is a list that for public comment for this specific usage. If there's a list in order.
No, there's not a
No,
list.
it's-
Anybody who wants to talk is welcome to
I
talk.
apologize. I'll
Did-
find it. Yeah.
Did you-
Ellen?
If you want to talk, come up to the table, introduce yourself. We're not taking questions from or public comment from the audience. We're taking public comment from here.
Because it doesn't get picked up on we won't
Yeah,
hear
just-
you in perpetuity. That's where the mic is.
I want to hear you.
Not in the beat. I know, but still, we
Okay,
want
where
everybody to
am
be
I
able to hear
going?
you.
Just
Have a
want to
seat,
make sure
right
that,
there.
yeah, have a seat. Wherever you want to be.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I want to share an experience that I had that is immediately relevant to this. And it really moved me. So last Sunday, early afternoon, late morning, I don't remember exactly. We live across the street. And I was in this nice little area behind the house with trees, and I was reading. And I started hearing, I couldn't even make out what I was hearing. And then I got kind of used to it, and I realized I was hearing people singing, but so beautifully and so delicately. But so I had to come see. I was really moved by this, and I will say why this is so important to me. So I came around, and I don't know who the people were. It was so beautiful. It was women. I mean, I don't know what group it was. And I just came around to say, I can't believe this, but it was like, for me, magical. I mean, there I was sitting behind a tree, I could hear it. And so, whatever. Then I started thinking about, well, what is going to happen here? And I started getting concerned because what I had heard was that this was going to be maybe pickleball or a team, whatever group. And living across the street was a little unnerving. Anyway, so I was coming for public comment, and and what I wanted to say is kind of almost irrelevant, because what I want to really say now, having been sitting here, is more important to me to convey. And that is that I think this is an amazing community, and that I think that our board is amazing, and that it kind of is like it will sink in that I don't really have anything to fear, and that whatever you guys do will be done in a way that's really respectful of people who live nearby and whatever, and I may get the pleasure of that. So I would like to say that if there's a way for me to volunteer, randomly, however I'm, that I would really be very happy to do that.
Wonderful.
Because I would be very happy to be part of this. As just a plain
Thank
citizen.
you so much. That's really kind
No,
of
thank
to
you.
say.
You have, I sat with Tom for a long time, and everything he said, you're gonna sound like an angry old woman. But I'm scared.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I'm going back over there now. I've had my say, and I'm available if there's, and I'll stick around a little while longer and then I'll get bored and go.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer, did you want to share anything?
Yeah, that was us singing. Oh, so I wrote some things, but I wrote them before I heard everything I just heard right now. But I still want to share like how much Bloom means to me, and I think, and you know, why we're asking for this space. So my name is Jennifer McKinley. Hello. I've been a member of Bloom for over 2.5 years. Until I heard Bloom perform in the community, I'd forgotten how much I love to sing and how great it makes me feel. Truly. The Sundays of rehearsals are really the highlight of my week. And the performances are the highlight of my year. This is super, super special to me. As I get to know all the members over the years, I get the sense that they feel very much the same way. So this opportunity, like to gather, to make music with Debbie Land is unique. And I just feel like as a result, the quality of the music shared invites a unique experience for our community. One that can inspire others, as I've been inspired to try something new and creative with one. It really is a special thing. And so having a stable and safe place to gather, sing, and rehearse for our performances is what we really need right now to keep this creative outlet thriving. Please consider our request to use this new space for our groups and other art groups like it in the community. Thank you. Even if it is just for 3 months, really, we can use whatever we can get right now.
Aurora, did you want to share?
Sorry, it's typed out because I have horribly crippling anxiety.
Don't be shy.
So my name is Aurora Ray Hope. And thank you for your time and consideration and hearing my comments and concerns. And I apologize for the lengthiness. I struggle with conciseness. I understand there's potential to utilize the former firehouse garage as a community resource. And I believe this space would be most advantageous as a space for music and the other creative arts. Music is a unique experience as it's something that everyone can enjoy. Who among you doesn't listen to any kind of music? Oftentimes it's challenging to find affordable and reliable spaces for musicians to rehearse and create moving harmonies and rhythms that enhance the entire community. Options are limited due to availability, finances, accessibility, as somebody who is physically disabled, that's been a huge challenge, and the need for electric and protection from the elements for equipment and performers. For some, music is a hobby. For others, music is a coping tool, serving as a safe space to experience a variety of emotions and explore aspects of identity and culture. But for me, music is a lifeline. I'm going to spare you the gory details, but suffice to say that I would not be alive if not for my passion for music and the connections forged in these community choirs. When I joined Bloom about 1.5 years ago, I was a shell of a person. Music gave me a voice. Singing provided a comfortable and safe place for me to blossom into my full self. After singing with a couple community groups for the past year, I've developed a confidence I never imagined possible. In the beginning, I found myself crying after rehearsals. After weeks of processing, I realized that unfamiliar sensation that brought me to tears was personhood. I was seen, heard, and validated for the first time in over 30 years. As the rest of my body fails me, singing is one of the few things that I can still do. Okay. Having emotions. Singing gives me a sense of purpose, normalcy, identity, and liveliness. Anyone who's seen me sing knows that I dance along. Regardless of physical limitations, music has given me a place to belong. One of the most marvelous things about all the musicians that I've met in the past year is they all ensured I was able to participate, even carrying myself and my equipment into inaccessible venues. These same people have been by my side through medical crisis after crisis, they keep coming, They also rescued me from an unsafe situation and provided protection and safety. Through music, I found family. When I lay awake at night struggling to ground myself from night terrors, I can turn to rough recordings made in rehearsals for comfort. When I become exhausted and breathing becomes a chore, I rehearse lyrics and picture our singing circle. I take a breath for each person, each one of the beautiful people that I have the pleasure to sing with until I once again find the vigor to breathe for myself. Together, we've learned to overcome challenges by singing a variety of music in multiple languages and unique time signatures. We discuss current events and important concerns when considering set lists. Both groups I'm involved in are open to anyone with an interest in singing. All are welcome. To be blunt and succinct, and there's more, so hang in there, singing with Bloom and Resistorhood has saved my life. But I'm one voice. I'm just one person. However, I believe the music we've created with Bloom and Resistorhood positively impact the greater community as well. I've observed teenagers pause as they pass by us during rehearsal, commenting to each other about the messages of the song, dancing along, or encouraging each other to join their school choir. Many little ones stop playing and begin swaying, captivated when observing our rehearsals or performances. It would be wonderful to have a space dedicated where they too could come to express themselves through music. I've been stopped by various community members after performances to discuss a song they enjoyed or humbly accept accolades. Many shared how certain songs affected them personally and internalized messages they want to carry into the rest of their day and their lives. I've also been privileged to be part of collaboration with other artists through my involvement with Bloom and Resistorhood. We've raised our voices in support of others in the community and participated in fundraising efforts, and that's my medication alarm, I'm sorry. We've participated in fundraising efforts for important causes, which could include renovating the space. I would love to have a dedicated space to continue to make music, start conversations, and initiate positive change through song. Additionally, as a therapist with over 10 years experience, I'm older than I look, working with a variety of populations, I can tell you that the most powerful tool I have in my therapeutic repertoire, apart from the strength of the therapeutic relationship, is music. I've watched previously catatonic individuals reanimate during a healing through music group. Those who struggle with anxiety, depression, or any manner of physical or emotional malady benefit from creating, participating in, and listening to music. In a crisis situation, when all other interventions and skills had failed, singing is what coaxed a young adult out of highway traffic and being willing to give life a second chance. Their experiences with the life-saving qualities of music are echoed and amplified in my own story. Music is an integral part of a healthy community. Reimagining the firehouse space into a space for music would be an investment in community well-being. It would provide a space for social growth and a tangible means of addressing concerns of equity, diversity, accessibility, and wellness. A dedicated space for music would offer multitudinous opportunities for the Village of New Paltz residents and the greater New Paltz and Ulster County residents. If you remain uncertain about the power of music, I invite you to attend one of our rehearsals or many of our rehearsals. You might even find yourself unwittingly singing and swaying along, which would always be welcome. So thank you for your time and consideration and hearing my story.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was going to see if Corinne wanted to.
We're going to overlap a lot. Grace, I will keep it short. Dear members of the village board, as a grateful member of 3 of David Land's singing ensembles, I'd like to invite you to consider creating a venue for the arts in the old firehouse. According to Ethan Hawke, most people don't think much about poetry or literary quotes or engaging song lyrics until they fall in love, or a child is born, or a loved one has crossed over. During those moments, art is not a luxury, but art is sustenance. We need it. Living in these turbulent times, our shared appetite for respite can, as such, be greatly nourished by the arts, and in our case, and for our cause, by music. Our ensemble's repertoires resonate within as well as through the hearts of our ever-growing audiences. Through song and companionship, we collectively forget about gravity for a while. And life feels brighter for the entire community as we pass it along. Thank you kindly for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
Kara, did you want to speak?
Well,
Kara, if you want to speak, you got to come.
yes. I really appreciate hearing from my fellow Bloom singers. I've been a member of Bloom for 7 years. And I understand the challenges of finding a place to perform sometimes, but mostly to rehearse. And during COVID, we were in an unheated barn for months. So we've tried a lot of different places. So this obviously seems like a very attractive opportunity. I really appreciate, Tim, you laying out the challenges of this space and how to think about it and how to use it. But I think there are really compelling reasons to try and convert it into an accessible community space, which I know is all of your vision. In these times, having social infrastructure is really, really important so that people feel that there is a place in the community that's open to everyone, and a place for the arts in particular, because that's something we don't really have. And the space is big enough that it really can accommodate a lot of different kinds of uses. And my note earlier today was just to say that I think it's really important that it be a flexible space so that it can be used by a lot of different kinds of groups, and Bloom will certainly, jump at the chance. Having heard the discussion and having listened to people, I hope that we could have a community fundraising effort. I appreciate that you're trying to secure grants that could help support this, but there's nothing like a good bake sale. I mean, I'm kind of kidding, but not really. I think that this could become a community project that could really be a nucleus for pulling the community together around creating something for everybody. And I know you've done it before. I saw it with the playground, and that was a big effort. This would be an even bigger effort, maybe. But I think it warrants consideration as a focal point for community engagement.
Well, that's when you're talking about, we hope we could find a space. I mean, you found it, right?
Yeah.
This has been the plan for years, is that the hope would be to use this for community and arts. We're just tasked with the very difficult job of making sure that it's available to the broadest, the largest possible number of people in the public, right? Like, we 100% want Bloom and groups similar to Bloom to use the space, but we just have to have a process that's like hyper transparent and that makes it so every possible group that might want to use it could consider using it, right? We don't want to be in a situation where groups are like, wow, we never even knew that was there. We would love to use a space like that. Our group would benefit from that as well. So that's our responsibility as elected officials who represent, this collection of people.
And the other part of it is, the other thing is how we're going to pay for it in perpetuity. The heating and the cooling isn't just a one-time thing. So again, so that it is available for as many people as possible.
And we've already raised $5,500.
Good. We're
Right.
working on it.
I think that the conversation was going towards holding some kind of open house so that people could come and see the space.
And we're cool with that, but we needed to be cleaned up a little bit more.
I get that.
Bill was saying that he's dialed in a date to finish some of the painting later in August. So this is a work in progress. I kind of feel like it's super cool to, if Bloom wanted to use it every single day for the next several weeks.
For you.
Did one fundraiser, which was like was fairly, we had an audience maybe of about 220 people. We raised close to $10,000
Yeah.
at just one fundraiser.
We have leaks in the roof and the roof
Right
repair
now.
is $50,000, right? We have asbestos in these roofs. Like we have like crazy expensive bills staring us in the face because of decades of deferred maintenance.
Yep, it looks pretty shabby. But I think what we're doing is we're encouraging you. We're trying to encourage you to keep going. And if we can help, you know, I think everybody wants to help.
Yeah, I will volunteer to help with the fundraising part of it.
You guys are welcome to organize your own fundraiser.
Yeah, sponsorships and whatnot.
You're welcome to do all of that and then say, look what we did for you. Like, we're happy with that. That's fine.
Well, we can get Ellen, with Ellen's permission, when we were singing here, it like lends itself to sort of an amphitheater because of the way the bays are and then the way where the driveway is, and the sound is quite magical to sing in that space.
And we would have to make sure that all the neighbors thought it was magical and not.
That's what I said.
Screwing up their
with
Sunday.
Ellen's help of notifying the neighbors.
While we're on the subject, I could hear probably a third of what was being said. And then only when somebody was facing me. I wear hearing aids. This space is not at all friendly for me. It's a struggle and I miss a lot.
So in addition to reimagining that garage space, we are also in the works of reimagining the audio visual for this space. And that's why we insist that anyone who is making a comment sits here, so everything is recorded. But Autumn has been working feverishly to yeah. And again, that's another $5,000 right there. That's how much that costs to reimagine audiovisual for this space.
Well, I think you've helped us understand what the challenges are, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
And we'll come back.
Great.
And
Thank you.
in the interim, like while we're, figuring this out, like book the space. I just want to be, I just don't want to box us into a corner where we don't have options to, allow other groups to use it or consider using it.
No, and as mentioned, I was unaware of the long-term, larger plans with booking for like an entire day. And also I know it's a work in progress. So I kind of felt like, why wouldn't we allow a group or groups to be in there, money coming in, granted not a lot, but in the interim of while it's being reimagined.
Well, having heard the whole conversation about the cannabis showcase and your willingness to be flexible and to try things out, it's a similar situation here, right? We have a resource, we want to try and all exploit it in the best way possible. So you have to be creative and flexible.
Right, and I feel like the cannabis example is a good one because with that growers market, we made it really clear that at any time we can pull that plug if it's not working for the community, right? Like our task is to represent as many people here as possible.
Yeah.
And it's a super hard task.
100%. And I wrote a little something myself as taking my trustee.
I can leave this seat, but I will listen to you.
But my fellow singers touched on most of it, but I just wanted to say that there's so many initiatives that we as a village board work on with equity, justice, climate, accessibility, and bettering mental health and mind. And another initiative is to add to the list is community music, which focuses on these ideals. We live in an area with such immense musical talent, and it's unfortunate there really isn't a dedicated space for musicians to practice their craft. And I just wanted to focus the openness for community-centric musical groups. Groups that perform together to build community within themselves, which Aurora spoke to very much so, how we are our own community within Bloom and Resisterhood, but also for us to share our talents with the whole of the community, as we did with Ellen, and strengthening the very meaning of what we strive for with community, which is a harmony of folks in unity. So I just wanted to share that bit of what I wrote because everybody else hit upon everything else.
Thanks.
If there are enough of us.
Ellen, if you want to talk, you gotta come up.
I'm not saying all for this one either. But as you were talking it occurred to me, are there not handicapped accessible funds that if there were enough handicapped people of one sort or another, that the state would make available? Could we approach, I don't laugh, I know, but I mean, can we not get some kind of, there must be handicapped accessible money.
So one of my favorite things that I've been working on is encouraging the New York State DOT to make our intersections ADA compliant.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, we aren't even
What
getting.
I'm saying is if you got a magic wand, let us know.
Well, I will.
And the people from the DOT and the people from county planning, they all want to see it happen too. And they take the time to come and meet with us and walk up and down Main Street and look at where we need to make improvements. But the idea, and it's on some sort of like 10-year list to reimagine
Well,
intersection.
I mean, I'm happy to make some phone calls. I don't know anybody. It's not as though I'm gonna call Harry. He'll be back you.
What about Kathy? You know, Kathy, the governor.
At any rate, what I'm saying is, okay, I'll use my imagination and see if I can, make any contacts, and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Well, I love that out of this conversation, we're talking about having when this is finished, to have a forum, a thing where people can come together and lend their help and skills and volunteer. And so, really that's what we are building here too. So I think we'll get that on the calendar when.
Yeah, and Bill's idea to have like us, as the language that Alex likes to use, blast this out, get as many folks as possible to come and talk and tell us what they want to do so we can get the broadest possible swath of people from the community. And then,
I'll give you the list of people I've already showed the space to. It's an intentionally super broad list. And I invited all of you guys to those meetings too.
So what if we could get some, like newspaper coverage on the efforts for handicapped I know. On the efforts for, like, among other things, handicapped access. I wonder if we could get something like that, because that would be good if we could, and then maybe, I don't know. But I just couldn't help but praise it sitting where I was sitting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. No, it's okay.
I'm gonna jump to our next item. So
Thank
thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for hearing us out.
So next time on this business agenda is, I'd like to propose that we advertise to hire a director of planning, zoning, and code enforcement, a building inspector 1, 2, or 3, a zoning coordinator for full or part-time. I mean, my thinking is like, let's cast a wide net, see who applies. And there could be any combination of candidates that might work.
I like this approach.
Are you talking about advertising for each individual position or just a broad?
All of them.
Great.
So what we're locked into is that there are approved descriptions for each of those jobs, so we have to use those jobs. And the way it works is there may be people who have already taken the civil service exams for some of those jobs. You have to hire from those lists first. If there's no one on those lists, you can hire people provisionally, and then if a test becomes available, they have to take the test and score high enough. But there's a whole process. But I think what's also interesting is, what if we found someone who was super strong, but they were only interested in part-time in one of these jobs? And maybe that's paired with someone who's full-time in this job. And so, some sort of flexibility would make some sense, so we could reimagine how to most effectively staff our building department.
What's an outlet for something like this? Where do you place an ad in the Raymond, in trade magazines, in there?
I think definitely social media. I think Indeed.com would be one. There's probably some other super conventional places to post jobs.
The Ulster County, the Ulster County Career Center. They post jobs every day. Their Facebook's really great.
There's also like a network of people who are licensed in this space, and that's what we've been trying to do so far, is to have conversation within that network. But it's hard. There's not a lot of people who are licensed. And it's super hard when downstate communities who have very different revenue pictures than we have can pay people a lot more.
So
Yeah,
would
my
our-
husband works for an agency that's under the umbrella of the state education department. He's been there for just over a year. He's supposed to have hired 3 people. They just were able finally to see 3 people this week, because again, they have to go off the list of people who took the exam. And he might, they're making an offer to 1 person so far, that for 1 position, because they saw 3 people for 1 position, and maybe they'll accept the offer. This is a year. And this is in Dutchess County.
So would the priority be code enforcement, building inspector 1, 2, 3? Would that be like the top position we want filled?
Well, what I've tried to do is to distill down the different tasks within a building department, right? So, someone shows up with an application, they want to do whatever. The first thing we should be doing is we should have a review to make sure that that proposal is allowed per our local zoning. And then that zoning officer would create a memo that they then, and then in that process, they would also simultaneously determine whether the project needs to go before the planning board or whether it's eligible just for a building permit. So then that memo would be, if it goes before a planning board, it has to be reviewed by the planning board. But then in parallel, you have to make sure that the project meets New York State Uniform Building Code. And if it does or it doesn't, that has to be communicated with the applicant. And then let's say they are granted a building permit, then you need an inspector who then goes and inspects the work and sees that it is compliant with those New York State building codes. So there's like a few specific steps that have to occur, and you could have generalists doing all of it, or you could have individual people wearing individual hats. And then what's unique about our building department is we also have a licensed municipal code officer who focuses on the rental registration. So one of the things our recently made full-time municipal code officer is doing is that he's going to do what he had been doing previously when he was part-time. He's going to do fire inspections, but then he's also going to try to see if there are opportunities to make that fire inspection happen at the same time that rental
registrations are. And it makes some sense, right? That you could make an appointment in a mixed use building where you're like, okay, I'm downstairs making sure the commercial stuff is compliant with fire code. And I'm making sure that the rental registrations are
I like that.
up to snuff. So I think there's like some opportunity to do things more efficiently, and that's what Alex is working on.
So good, is it possible, I'm just sort of wondering in terms of zoning, could zoning be outsourced to?
You know what I think, if anything were to be outsourced, it would be more along the lines of something that's related to New York State building, right? So zoning, I would be more in favor of having local staff who are more familiar with our local zoning,
Right.
as opposed to, well, if you're going to build whatever you want, we don't have local building codes. We only have New York State codes. So you could have a third party review those
Sure.
building codes. And then the other thing is the inspection, right? You could outsource that to a third party as well, but then, you know, my understanding is that ends up being fairly expensive for the applicants when you use.
Right.
And we have done that historically, like we have a more complicated building, let's say like concrete and steel, as opposed to like stick frame that maybe our inspectors are more familiar with.
Sure.
You probably do want to have a third party consultant
Right.
who understands concrete and steel better to perform those inspections.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is like even this director position, like I could imagine you could find a really good full-time director, or you could even find a good part-time director. You know, so I think we have to cast a wide net and be open to different possibilities.
Right. So what's next steps?
It's just that, advertise
Yeah.
these positions.
This is both.
Yeah.
I move that we advertise these positions as put
I
forward. by
second
The
Donna's
mayor.
motion. All in favor, aye.
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 Okay, so the next thing is the EFC Engineering and Planning Grant. So Autumn has probably like 97% done with that grant application that's due on Friday. And this is just an update that we have this list that the public can sign on to, just to say that they're excited that we're applying for this grant assistance. Oh, I'm wrong. It was, yeah, it got bumped. It was originally Friday, and for whatever reason, New York State said you have extra time, but we're sticking with our plan to get it done this week. And then we have a contract with our water and sewer plant operator, H2O. So we had a contract that has been reviewed by our local staff as well as our attorney, and we've come to an agreement with H2O. So I move that we sign that contract. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And then this is the $500,000 award from the county where they were sharing some of their ARPA money for a water project. So this is basically just saying that we're signing off on that contract to receive that money. All in favor, aye. And we have a memo from our building department where if we have an outside municipality who needs assistance, the fee would be $100 per hour to send our building department officials to go ahead and answer that call if their own staff were not available. I move that we establish this fee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we just have this in as a placeholder, the review of our Schedule A and Schedule B that remains to be a work in progress. We're going to revisit at the August 9th meeting. We're not going to do anything with that. And then we have this intermunicipal agreement with the town of New Paltz. They identified an individual to hire, which was listed up in our consent agenda up above, but then we also have this intermunicipal agreement where that individual is using the village's gator, and the village is providing fuel and water to get those hanging plants watered each day. And we're retroactively approving the signing of this renewed IMA following updates. So this is just an IMA that we created to make sure that insurance was accounted for. And we just wanted to make sure that that this agreement was updated. So I move that we go ahead and approve this intermunicipal agreement with the town of New Paltz.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I move bills and claims. All in favor? Do we have a planning board?
Sure.
liaison update?
A quick one. Last week's meeting was basically all about New Paltz Apartments. The draft EIS was presented to the planning board. They reviewed it at length. A number of concerns were expressed from the planning board. Environmental issues, aesthetic issues, traffic issues, who's going to be living in the apartments, et cetera. At the end of the meeting, it's been agreed that EIS can be presented at the next, is it the next planning board?
No, there's, engineering and traffic will comment
Right.
at the next meeting.
Right. So it's gone through the first phase and will be moved forward. The other thing I want to mention is at the start of planning board meetings, there used to be a representative from the Environmental Policy Board that used to come periodically and listen in. In fact, the meetings start with, do we have an update from those board, or we have an update from Environmental Policy Board member, and maybe members of that board are aware that they're invited to attend if they'd like to.
That's Rachel Nagaka, she's a member of the planning board as well.
Yeah.
Rachel just.
Yeah, but she doesn't.
We haven't had meetings.
I see. Okay. I just want to bring that up because it comes up at each meeting and there's no, I think one trustee, I think Don Carroll was the last person that was. So I don't know if we want to drop that from.
No, it's the law.
They have to, okay.
Yeah, EPB. Well, I don't know that it's law that they have to attend. It's just law that that there's like an official line of communication between the EPB and the planning board.
Okay.
I just want to note that they have not had quorum at a meeting since probably the end of 2022, and that tonight on the consent agenda, you have approved the fourth member of the EPB, Jessica McGovern.
Yeah, Jess will help that out.
Thought it was worth mentioning. And
No, that's a good point.
Ulster County has not met. We meet next Wednesday.
Great. And no ZBA liaison update.
That is you.
Hmm?
That is you.
I said no.
Okay.
Update. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second. Aye.
Adjourn.